Welcome back to Biblio Fitness. Hope everyone's had a great day, made glorious gains. Today I destroyed my deadlift, my SLDL. Last time I did 195 for 7, and this time I did 195 for 12. I fucking destroyed it, which is bizarre, but it felt good. I feel like the first time you touch a weight, it's heavy because you're like, it's something that you're obviously never been used to, and then the second time around you just start launching through. At least when it comes to my back, my back is just like overly developed compared to everything else. But I love it. Yeah. I have an amazing back. Considering my total progress and lack thereof, I guess you could say. But today I wanted to talk about a little aphorism or parts of the dawn of day that really has been resonating with me lately. And I guess it really does show the core message of Nietzsche, or one of the core messages. And that's when he starts talking about how the perspective of an individual changes when you are sick, when you are suffering from some sort of sickness and shit like that, and when you are dealing with that sort of ailment, your perspective on life changes. The beauty of life dissipates. The illusions that we usually have in regard to how beautiful life is, and how gorgeous and how brightful and how hopeful, and all these positive affirmations that we describe to reality and to the world have now been extirpated from the individual, because now it constantly immersed in suffering, as long as your reason doesn't go out the window. But now immersed in suffering, one sees reality for what it is, the world for what it is, because you cannot escape it. And that is suffering. All these things of how we talk about life being beautiful, and life being constant progress, or the love and compassion and beauty and pity and camaraderie, and all these beautiful words that we use are nothing but words, nothing but masks, hiding the innate suffering underneath it all, hiding the rot and the death and the decay that is necessary in order for these for our civilization to propel, I guess you could say. When you are youthful, when you are healthy, delusional in some cases, well, in most cases really, you don't see that. We only see the superficial overlying thing of it all. And that's something that he's been talking about lately in this recent aphorism, is how superficial we are, how we only regard outbursts as our ego. And we'll get to that when we get to that. But he goes on to talk about how, you become disillusioned, and in that disillusionment there comes enlightenment, that there only is suffering, there is only pain, and all these metaphysical answers, or all these metaphysical explanations, are nothing but theories, nothing but coping mechanisms, nothing but band-aids, I guess you could say, in order to keep you from realizing the terrible truth of it all, that it's only suffering. There will only be suffering. There will never be an alleviation of the suffering. And us trying to distract ourselves from that and creating these delusions is what draws us to Christianity, what draws us to religion, what draws us to mass movements like mass ideologies, nationalism, trying to belong in a group, trying to forget that, And he goes on to talk about Jesus. He goes on to talk about how pain can cause an enlightenment and can really extirpate an individual, and can be quite painful experience when your delusion was very well ingrained within your psyche. Take Jesus, for example, as he says. And how in that moment of excruciating pain, when he was crucified, what did Jesus say? What Jesus said was, God, why hast thou forsaken me? And in that, that's a very interesting moment, because not a lot of Christians like to talk about that very pivotal moment. That is probably the most pivotal moment in the entire story of Jesus and all this stupidity, but that is the quintessential factor of it all. That is the fucking ending, but everyone glosses over it. And everyone glosses the importance of that word, of that statement, of that question, God, why have you forsaken me? And according to Nietzsche, and he comes out with another theory in Beyond Good and Evil, is that, and even in Will to Power, is that in that influx, in that overwhelming sensation of pain and suffering, there was disillusionment and enlightenment. And I really do believe that he means, like, he doesn't explicitly state it, but from what I'm seeing, because he starts, he really enlightening within himself. And I believe, in my opinion, what that means when he said, God, why hast thou forsaken me, is that he realized when he was getting hung on the cross that there is no God, that God has forsaken you because God never existed. And in that pain, he realized the error of his ways, his delusions, how he was proclaiming himself the Son of God, when in reality he was nothing more than a holy fool for a God that never existed and never will. And how in that process of disillusionment, one becomes angry at oneself because of the fact that, you were so immersed in these ideologies and you were so proudful of these ideas, and how much of your persona and how much of your ego or whatever was predicated on these delusions of health, of health and love and beauty and colorfulness and all that. But when you're in suffering, you realize the quintessential fact, and if there's any absolute truth in the world, it is that it's suffering. There will never be an escape from it. There will never be an alleviation from it. And for like the past 2,000 years or even longer than that, you have Hindu, for example, it's this constant running away from that act, from that truth. There is such a truth that's that. And what I'm starting to realize is that, all these cultures, all these religions, so many philosophies, is this repudiation or this attempt at suffering, at how can I alleviate that suffering? How can I distract myself from that suffering? How can I distract myself from the void? When I was tripping myself on shrooms, every single time I trip on shrooms, I just get I feel like I'm gazing into the void. And that void is like in a weird way hearkening back to me and like talking back to me. And before I stop tripping, I always say, one day will we meet again. And that's what I said the last time. I will one day return to the void. But for now, I got to do this. For now, we got to keep suffering. But one day, I will return to the void. I don't know if that's correct philosophically, whether you can return to the void considering you're going to die. But we're not going to get into that. But that void, because my friend and his seeking out of an alleviation of that suffering was like a reflection of who I used to be, and it's a reflection of what most people are. We do drugs, we immerse ourselves in all these things that I said as a distraction, as a way to be like, okay, there has to, it can't just be suffering. It can't just be that. It can't just mean anything and mean nothing. What's the point then? You know what I'm saying? If it's only suffering, what's the point of it all? If you're just gonna die, what's the point? And that's why we created all these. You have to admit that these are essential foundations, and these are essential constructs in order for us to keep playing in this game. But the deviation from modern philosophy and modern religions, or old religions even, and Nietzsche, and it was stated in this aphorism towards like the middle or the ending or whatever, is how in a moment of clear-sightedness, you separate yourself. You tell yourself, you know what? I am going to be my own hangman, and I'm going to be my own judge. I am responsible for my punishment, and I'm the one that is inflicted upon myself. For now, I am going to be my own judge, be my own executioner. For once, embrace thy will, embrace thy suffering, and put suffering as the highest of the pedestals. Put that as an ideal. Instead of running away from suffering, instead of immersing yourself in the delusions of youth and grandeur, accept that reality, and instead of going to religions to try to alleviate it or try to find an explanation, try to find some metaphysical explanation for the suffering that is going to help you sleep better at night, And when you put yourself in that situation, you are just being directed. You are no longer in control. You are not in control when you follow ideologies and religions, no matter how hard you want to try, no matter how hard you try to explain yourself. You are working with a specific framework based on a lie. A necessary lie, maybe. For most people, I'm sure most people will not be able to live with the fact that you're going to be constantly suffering and constantly immerse yourself in it. We even have people who meditate to try to isolate themselves from the suffering. It's all these attempts to run away. And that harken me back to when Nietzsche was criticizing, when are we going to stop criticizing the illness and focus more on critiquing the supposed alleviations of these illnesses? A lot of times we suffer more from the remedies, quote unquote, than from the illness itself. And I think the illness is life. The illness is suffering. And our constant focus on religion telling us that we're suffering because of some punishment that two idiots made long ago. Naked Christianity, you inherit this flaw, you inherit this sin, you were born guilty, and suffering is that punishment. And the only way to escape from it is embrace God, embrace His love, embrace His mercy, because you don't deserve it to begin with. You have, Buddhism, how the apex of sainthood in Buddhism is a complete unbecoming. It is a person that has completely relinquished all life, all values, all wants and desires, and just been isolated, right? That's how you become a Buddha. I know I'm completely oversimplifying such a complicated religion, complicated philosophy, but that's the gist of it, right? It is this constant running away from suffering. And I believe that little thing there of being thy own executioner, be thine own judge, embrace and be able to overcome thy suffering, thy life, and look above reason and unreason, is because it's very profound. Because for the most part of my life is running away from suffering, right? We turn to alcohol, we turn to drugs, we turn to friends, we turn to all these stupid mechanisms. We go out partying, and we get drunk, and we get wasted to somehow forget our pain. But guess what's going to be waiting for us on the other side? Pain. There's no escape from it. No matter how hard you try, you will always come back to it. And I feel a lot of the times, we feel guilty after committing those acts because we know how futile that effort is. We know that it's not going to help anything. It's just a band-aid that's going to get ripped off quite easily. It's going to come off in a couple hours. Doing drugs, doing ecstasy, doing coke, drinking, whoring, fucking, and all these things. You feel like shit after because you didn't do anything about it. You know that these are futile attempts. And instead of embracing that suffering, we turn to whatever we can in order to forget about it. We turn to family, we turn to all these things. And to be thine own executioner, to be thine own judge, and to embrace thy punishment and know that you are the reason for that punishment. You are the one that placed that punishment on yourself is ultimate freedom. And to be over suffering, instead of running away from it, you finally embrace it, immerse yourself in it, is when you can finally be free. You have finally embraced the truth of it all. And when you are in that ideal, and when you have finally placed suffering as the highest of drives, you have now separated yourself from the lies of society, from the delusions of youth, or the proudful, or those who want to continue living, completely disregarding. I lost my train of thought, but to embrace your suffering and to rise above it and rise above life. That is the true way. Not running away, not coping, not trying to find a way to cope it, but saying, yes, life is suffering. Do I know what it means? No. It's up to me to find out what it means. Why am I going to suffer? Why am I going to continue to exact punishment on myself with that suffering? Instead of turning to a God for an answer, turn to yourself, turn to your own experience, turn to your own personality to become you. And that to me is one of the quintessential messages, and that's why I started reading Nietzsche, because I wanted to run away for so long. And recently I'm just like, you know what, I've been suffering more than I need to because I'm trying to run away. And I don't want to take the same route as other people who are want to be utilitarians or whatever, that talk to, we have to bring the community together because that's how we are going to alleviate the suffering of mankind, which doesn't make any sense because death will come for us all. And that will probably be the end of culture and society if we completely absolve ourselves of suffering. And that's why, the critique of the remedies of suffering have to be highlighted even more. And that was something else brought up by Nietzsche, is all these answers or supposed answers have only caused further detriment to our psyche, have only made us more empty, have only made us more incomplete, more shallow, more sorrowful, has caused us to digress because we're just constantly trying to fight that truth that there is only suffering. The only thing that is guaranteed in this world is suffering and death. That's all you can ever hope for. And that's a very tough pill to swallow. It's the ultimate black pill, is it not? Life is meaningless until you provide it with meaning. That's a pure atheistic statement, and I'm an atheist. And I was trying to tell my friend, I'm like, dude, stop trying to use drugs to run away from your problems. Because guess what? Once the high goes away, what's waiting for you on the other side? Your fucking problems, your stress, suffering. And how much of this suffering that we incur upon ourselves needlessly, always being watchful, always having to be cognizant of what other people think of us, of the expectations of others, instead of really, really just embracing your selfish desires in a way, and not, I don't know if that's the appropriate terminology to use, but to really be your own judge. What am I going to suffer for? What am I going to be punished for? It is up to you. And I think that really is so profound, to not look at things so superficially, but be aware that underneath all the supposed healthiness of the world, it's built on decay. It's built on rot. It's built on death. How can you possibly make way for the new without killing off the old? The old has to die. But we have this fucking obsession nowadays with improvement, self-improvement. Without any sacrifice involved. Everything is every marketing attempt nowadays is trying to sell you on how to make your suffering even less, make everything easier, make everything more streamlined, less pain, less worry, less time involved, less effort involved. While most of us just think in the now and think, oh yeah, that's so convenient for me. Long term, it's causing a severe detriment, because the only way that you become great and the only way that you evolve is by dying, by strife, by struggle. But that goes completely against the rhetoric of the majority nowadays, where we want to alleviate suffering. We want to escape from it. And that's been going on, especially in the Western civilization, for the past 2,000 years with the emergence of Christianity, right? The repudiation of values of the world, the repudiation of suffering. That suffering is necessary. And the greatest of the greats have suffered probably more than anybody. And that's why they became great. Us trying to say that, trying to help one another and all this stuff has just caused it to get even worse and worse and worse as time goes on. Our attention span is gone, everyone's soft. There's a plethora of symptoms that substantiates the statement, right? Or substantiates the idea. And I feel like that's one of the big turning points that is necessary. Instead of running away from suffering, is like embracing that one day I will return to the void, embracing the fact that I don't need some sort of metaphysical answer or some answer in the beyond to have me keep going. I don't need any of that anymore. I don't need company of people. I don't need friends. I don't like that. I'm saying I don't need friends completely. entirely, but I'm just saying that I don't need those constructs. I don't need those lies. I don't want those distractions anymore. Because in distracting yourself in those things, you're just prolonging the inevitable, and if anything, long term, you're just going to exasperate your current situation. And that's why we really do need to critique more the remedies or supposed remedies that people have displayed for us in this effort to alleviate pain and strife and suffering. Religions and all these bullshit superficial remedies, because we're always dealing with that anxiety of death and that anxiety of pain, and trying our very best to come up with the best lives possible for our souls so we can sleep better at night, and the best lives possible so we can forget as much as we can of that pain. And that's why I feel like a lot of us are empty. We know that's not, this is not the way. Just most people don't think beyond that. Most people don't think more than 5 steps ahead. And that's why, people get drunk, then they feel like shit after. And they're like, I feel like shit, might as well drink again. And it's just this cycle, right? You didn't alleviate anything. You're not, the suffering is going to remain there no matter how hard you try. Might as well embrace it. Might as well, instead of looking for answers somewhere beyond, find the answer within yourself. Be your own executioner. If I'm going to be punished for these supposed crimes of suffering, then I might as well be punished for crimes that are beneficial for me, not beneficial for the crowd, beneficial for the group, beneficial for people that don't mean anything to me and I don't mean anything to them. Not to sacrifice myself for the group or suffer for the group. Why can't I suffer for myself? At the end of the day, all you have is you. At the end of the day, who's going to be with you in the deepest of the depths, in the darkest of times? It's you. And I think that's, low-key pretty beautiful, really. And it's very freeing. And, stop to not look for answers and to be thy own self. It's amazing, and obviously it's completely contradictory to the message of today. But who wants to be like everybody else, right? But everyone says they don't want to be like everybody else, yet they still act like everybody else, which is quite hilarious, really. Everyone wants to say that they're unique and they're all these special snowflakes and stuff. But they're still the same shit. They follow the same drives and they come up with the same excuses, And that's why that line really started getting with me in Fight Club when they're in the bus stop, Tyler Durden and his alter ego, which is Brad Pitt. And, Tyler Durden goes to the thing, like he goes on one of the advertisements for Calvin Klein, the boxer, and that's a guy sculpted, right? And he's like, does that look like a man to you? Is that what a man is? And he's laughing, he's talking about, working out and all this shit is just vanity. And he's like, self-improvement is masturbation, but self-destruction. And I feel like that is the key. It's not improvement. Improve what? There's nothing to improve. You have to destroy facets of yourself if you really want to grow. And for that, you're going to have to go through pain. And for that, you're going to have to suffer. And for that, you're going to fail miserably over and over and over again trying to get through it. And there are no shortcuts like Christianity offers. The shortcut to perfection is following the principles of God and Jesus and all that bullshit. Those are just bullshit shortcuts that don't help anything. They're not going to help you evolve. But self-destruction is what it is. The analogy of the phoenix, bathed in fire, lights itself on fire so it could be born again, renewed and healthy and renewed with vigor and virility. The only way to achieve that is to allow your old part of the old you to die. The old you has to be crucified in order for you to continue to grow, in order for you to keep on going. That's why I think that line is very important. Self-improvement truly is masturbation. It's this delusional idea that you are already great. You are you are a great person. You are a good person. You just need a little tweaks. Like, no, you're not. the part of you that's been going on here clearly has not done the job. Kill him or her, destroy him or her. You have to be someone new. You can't improve. You have to allow those parts of you to decay and wither away. Like I said, that goes completely against the rhetoric today, but that's why I've started to realize that we really don't want anything to do with truth for the most part. Most of us don't like the truth. That most of us come up with these delusions and believe in for so long that they become instinctual. Not instinctual, but they just become a bit like it just because of habit to think that way. So, you have to really embrace the void, embrace the fact that one day you are going to die, and embrace the fact that one day, that there is no God. And if there is no God, there's no redemption, there's no damnation, there's no salvation. There's just you. And then once you let those parts of you die that were clinging on to those moral presuppositions and these concepts on what good is and what being a good person is, and which is basically just utility to everybody else, instead and in a detriment to your own development, it's pretty important, and it's very enlightened me quite a bit. But that'll be all for today. I realize that I'm about to, it's already enhanced. But it really is great, because he goes on to talk about how superficial we are with our own interpretations of our drives, of why we love, why we hate, why we do this and that. And it just goes on with the message that I was just talking about, how we just look for superficial answers to the problem of life and suffering. We just look for remedies, superficial remedies that don't alleviate the issue. They just prolong it, and you're just going to have to deal with it again and again and again. And you never get to the root of the problem because you're too scared. It's fucking amazing. So that'll be all for right now. It's getting hot, and gotta go back to work actually. So I'll love y'all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share. I know I never say these things, but I might as well say it. I do appreciate the love. If you have any suggestions on even books, please feel free to let me know. I appreciate to whoever watches this. And thank you for taking the time out of listening to a man like myself. And hope you all have an amazing day and continue on your own developments as an individual. I was just telling my boy, like, he was looking for answers, and I told him, hey, look, I'm not going to give you any answers. You got to go look for it yourself. Because then what's the point? And you're just looking for salvation in another person, and that's definitely not me. So go find yourself, fail miserably in the process, and see what comes out on the other side, right? Love y'all. Till next time. Peace.